All right. Well, good afternoon. This is the Sustainable Economy Task Force. We are beginning this meeting at 2:05 p.m. on Thursday, January 16th at 2025. And we will go ahead and get going with roll call. So do we have GSD? Do we have EDD? Yes, myself and our new deputy Isaac is also here, so we'll let him introduce himself in a bit. Do we have MNerd? Nope. Do we have DWS?
Present.
Okay. Do we have Tax and Rev? Public Education? Do we have Mr. James Poviwa from the Advisory Council?
Present.
Okay. Do we have IAD?
Present.
Okay. Environment Department?
Present. This is Neori Harms for Environment Department.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Do we have State Investment Council?
Present.
Okay, DFA? State Lands?
Present.
Okay, and HED. All right, great. And now, Crystal, I'm going to have you share screen with the agenda for today's meeting so that we can approve that. All right, and if you wouldn't mind just scrolling down a little bit so they can see the whole thing. Perfect. Could I have a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved. IAD Michael.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Was that Raquel?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, seeing none, this agenda is approved. And Crystal, if you wouldn't mind also sharing your screen to show minutes from our last meeting. And I believe that was a couple months ago. Okay, perfect. Yeah, we've braked for the holidays this year, but we're excited to get started again with you. So these are the minutes from that previous meeting. Is that it? That's the bottom? Oh, no, there's way more. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved. IAD Michael.
Is there a second?
Second, Raquel.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed?
Sharon Machuthi, I'll just note that I abstained from that as I was not present at that meeting.
Okay. All right, so affirmatives and one abstention. Seeing no opposition, we'll approve those minutes. And then Crystal, if you wouldn't mind going back to our agenda, we can go ahead and move on to the next item, which is to discuss topics for the coming year. And last time we had a discussion and we didn't finalize any of those topics. So the purpose of this discussion would be to vote to approve those topics for the coming year. And we had floated some ideas. I put a couple of other ones on here. Crystal, would it be possible to zoom a little bit? Okay, excellent. So we'll jump into that in a second, but before we get into the main content of the meeting, Isaac, did you want to take a moment to say hi, or do you want to do that later?
Sure, I can do it now.
Okay,
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me. I am Isaac Romero, Deputy Cabinet Secretary for the Economic Development Department. And thanks, Caleb, for putting these together and keeping everything on track here. I know there's a lot going on there, and so I started in my role early October. So it's been just over 3 months, and so just getting my feet under me and understanding all of the programs and initiatives that we're working on. But certainly, I'm a resource and hoping to provide provide some value. So if there's anything I can do, please let me know. But we have a good team member here with Kayla as well. Thank you, everyone.
Great. And Isaac, I'm glad you're here because later during updates from EDD, I was going to briefly talk about the project with the Growth Lab. So it's good that we have someone from leadership to speak with you guys about that as well. But for context, and mainly for Isaac's sake, we can just summarize the subjects that we talked about last year. I think we had a lot of great conversations. One of those was on clean energy and infrastructure workforce. Raquel and Secretary Nair hosted us. We had a meeting at the State Lands Office on revenue issues, and many of the members of the Consensus Revenue Estimating Group were included in that presentation. Most of them are already represented on our task force. So that was a great meeting. We talked about infrastructure as either a catalyst or an inhibitor to economic development when there's insufficient infrastructure. Geez, what else did we discuss? Lots of great meetings, and we're hoping that this year can be just as fruitful. You may not know this, but those conversations were very formative to the state plan. So it was an excellent forum and opportunity for us to get to collaborate with sister agencies, particularly the workforce and revenue meetings, and the infrastructure one. Those were excellent because it gave us a chance to say, hey, let's compare data, let's compile information and sync up on what we're doing here. And that really was helpful when we were approaching the authorship of the plan this year. So we appreciate all of your contributions, and it's not just to make presentations in these meetings, I promise. It was definitely instrumental. James, did you have a question?
Just a quick comment and some also commendation for all the work that you and your team did, especially in support of the Sustainable Economy Advisory Council. We, through all of your assistance, were able to host numerous meetings in communities. Many and task force members attended. I'll note that Raquel probably gets attendance record for that. So thank you all for all of that, and very much looking forward to the state plan. And thank you for taking in so many community voices into that work. So just commendation to you, Chair Matusi.
Thank you, James. Chair Poviwa. I also see Otsa in the guest room, so I'm going to click on you for a comment. I saw that you had your hand up.
My apologies. I was trying to get something else going on my phone.
Okay. No
Sorry about that.
worries. No worries at all. Yeah, so like James said, we had lots of great meetings. Those included community meetings and stakeholder sessions, but they also included these great meetings in the task force that we had, and we enjoyed the opportunity to collaborate. What I'm hoping for these sessions this year is that we'll choose topics that we might not be talking about together otherwise. I want to really maximize our time. And so, the infrastructure meeting, for example, I'm not sure that it would have ever happened otherwise. And we got to hear from New Mexico Partnership and Rebecca Roos, and both of them think about infrastructure from very different lenses. So we got to hear about infrastructure in terms of economic development and site readiness. And then we also got to hear about infrastructure in terms of community access and the intersections between those. And same with the revenue meeting that we had. It was one of the only meetings that I've seen in the state where we were talking about the intersection between why we diversify our economy and why we put savings in our permanent funds. So I'm hoping that as we choose topics for the coming year, we can select topics that check that box of really bringing us together to discuss things that we wouldn't otherwise be putting time into. And so, with that in mind, there is the bulleted list of ideas that we discussed in our last meeting. And then there's also a couple of ideas that I raised that we might consider as well. So from last meeting, we have topics such as uranium remediation, a joint meeting with New Mexico's councils of governments, local government finance and data management. I want to underscore, I think that one is really important because when we think about data access, a lot of local governments can't do the analysis that they would like to because they don't have access to the right data, whether it be digitized data sets or whatever the case. So that one I really like. Harnessing federal funds. I think that would be another great topic, especially if we position it a little bit further into the year so that we can wait to see how the federal landscape might change. I'm keeping my finger on the pulse of that, and so it would be good to just continue passing quality information to folks who will be impacted by possible changes. We could have an update on clean energy workforce in light of the executive order and the new work that DWS has been doing in partnership with EDD and MNERD. Additional ideas might be an update on the status of ETA implementation. And then lastly, economic diversification in New Mexico, where EDD could share some of what it's doing, including in implementing the forthcoming 2025 state plan update, but where we could also potentially bring in one of our research partners, the Harvard Growth Lab, to give a presentation on the type of analysis that they do so that you all can familiarize yourselves with one of our research collaborators that we'll be working with. So now I'll just open it up in case anyone has other ideas that they would like to see considered on our upcoming agenda.
Kayla, I just wanted to step in and say that I think we should definitely have a clean energy workforce agenda topic for one of our meetings, but like the harnessing federal funds later in the year, because there's so much momentum right now between now and probably July. If we have a later meeting on energy workforce, we'll probably have more data and insight on New Mexico's landscape when it comes to energy and infrastructure workforce. But I'd be really excited to share what that'll look like at that time.
Okay, perfect. And it occurs to me as well, since so many of these topics will have movement in the legislative session, maybe we should also include a post-session update from agencies for one of our meetings. Would that be helpful to everyone?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. So I will write that down. Okay. Does anyone think we should strike any of these topics, or is anything missing from this list? James?
No, I don't think that we need to. I would not say that I'd strike any of these topics. I might add, in terms of uranium remediation, just remediation in general, for instance, orphaned wells and potential for new job growth for and transition work for workers around remediation.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's actually one of the most common points of feedback that we got when we were doing community level engagement. So, and I know that we have Miori here as well, so I think that would be
Yeah,
really good.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up. When I first came, my work was to create a uranium reclamation workforce. And so initially it really focused on uranium. And as it as I talked with more people, it went more towards an environmental cleanup discussion. So I think that would cover what James was talking about. Orphan wells, we have neglected contaminated sites, and that would include anything from asbestos to PFAS contamination, which has been more in the news lately. So I think maybe a broader category is more appropriate, and it also falls in line with the new job training program that I've put together with San Juan College and Workforce Solutions. We're calling that environmental cleanup, not specific to uranium. So I'm good with that more broader characterization. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great to know. And Miori, maybe you could explain to our task force. I think we may have touched on this a little bit last time, but for everyone to understand the expertise that you bring and the way you think about this topic, would you maybe just say a few words discussing how you've discovered that the skills you need in remediation can be very broadly applicable across a whole range of different types of projects? Because that was new knowledge for me, and I think it's important for folks from a workforce perspective to grasp that.
Sure. Yeah, these are great paying jobs with skills that cross industries. As we talked with employers about what they wanted, it was more general skill sets. So, one of the more specific items was HAZWOPER training. That's hazardous waste and operations, emergency management response training. It's a one training, but it's a micro credential. CPR, first aid, that can cross industries. One of the things that came up was a commercial driver's license program. So we did end up adding that as one of the tracks that students could choose in the job training program. Project management was another one, and then GIS mapping skills is another one. So there were kind of four categories. One was field work, which, as I said before, the people doing asbestos cleanup are the same people doing uranium cleanup. You've got to go out, you have to take an environmental sample, dirt or water or air, and you report it back. So the skill set is the same. So the environmental consultants are all kind of hiring the same skill set. Ideally, it'd be a bachelor's and a STEM degree. But if someone has a high school degree plus, say, a focused job training program that under their belt, in their resume, then they could apply as well. A lot of times they're looking for master's degrees too, but not all of them. So obviously you don't need a master's for a CDL license. You don't need a master's to do project management or mapping. Those are very accessible across industries and are good for anyone who just wants to do a career transition or just move up. These are all good paying jobs. I think Workforce Solutions kind of said they're all within the range of like 48 to 85,000. They might correct me on that later, so maybe I shouldn't put the numbers, but they're good paying jobs. And I think it's worth taking a look at that and kind of expanding how we can engage the underemployed or unemployed workforce to do this. Workforce Solutions did put a skills matching report out that said that in the areas of need for at least uranium, but really across the state, there is a workforce available to do this work and has these skills. So I think it's just a matter of mobilizing.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for that. Well, any other thoughts on this list?
I think it would be helpful, and I'd be interested to hear from folks with the IAD, but specifically one meeting on tribal engagement.
Well, James, that's a good point because that would be a good opportunity to continue raising the profile of our tribal economic development focus group offering. We had 3 inquiries of interest and only ended up getting to do one in terms of the last iteration of the plan. So we're hoping that that interest snowballs. And maybe we could discuss more generally, the focus group, but also any other ideas for improving engagement here among state agencies. Do you have any specifics you want me to add to that item?
I'm super interested to hear if there are any thoughts from folks from IAD. I think we may have at least one task force member from IAD at the moment, but I would defer to them.
Okay, we should have Michael.
Me.
Yep, there we have Michael here. Wanted to make sure I'm not calling on a ghost. Michael, do you have any ideas?
Um, Not off the top of my head. I'm about as good an economist as you might think a geologist would be, but I think it's an effort that we definitely support. And if I need to do some homework to help move it forward, I'd be happy to, actually.
Okay.
Great. And Michael, I'd love to chat with you further about it. Some and we can take that offline.
Yeah, and
Yeah, definitely.
I'll say we really appreciated the active support of IAD on tribal consultation and engagement for the plan, and we really enjoyed working with Carnley, so we'll just keep building momentum on that. Okay. Any other thoughts on the list? And then one final thing that I might propose is that since the state plan stems from this body, and the legislation that created it, it would probably be appropriate to have one meeting where I give an overview of this year's plan update. So would anyone have interest in that as well?
Sure, I'd appreciate if maybe that was an early meeting, and excited to see and also hear your report on it.
Perfect. And we'll obviously do that for the advisory council if it's wanted as well. So yeah. Um, okay, so let me I'll kind of verbally for the record state what we have here on our list, and I think what we can do is vote on the topics, and I've noted your concerns about kind of placement of those topics throughout the year. So we can just vote on the topics themselves, and then I'll do my best to arrange them in a way that makes sense on the agenda itself. So does that sound like an okay approach to you all?
Yes.
Okay, so in no particular order, and just for the record here, the the three items that have been added today during our discussions are a session on the state plan, a meeting to update on activities and items that move forward during the legislative session, and some sort of meeting on tribal engagement. And then everything else that we plan to discuss is already here on this agenda, with the caveats that remediation would just be remediation more broadly. And then we would make sure that our presentations on federal funding and clean energy workforce were taking place later in the year. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve that list. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Was the second from James? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, we have approved this list of agenda items for 2025. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and just provide some brief updates from EDD. So our state plan is forthcoming very shortly in the next couple of days here. We're really excited about that. We're going to be doing some press for that document, and we're excited to work with all of you throughout implementation. And then I'll just note that we do have a really great partnership with the Harvard Growth Lab throughout the coming year. Their specialty is economic diversification. And so I think in the meeting on diversification, we may have them do some sort of side presentation. And then you can learn about the tools and frameworks that they offer so that if you guys have any ideas, you can bring them to us, because hopefully it'll be a very collaborative process, and I know that our leadership is excited about it. So, Isaac, I don't know if you wanted to add anything about that Growth Lab partnership.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, thanks, Kayla. So I was glad that, was it 2 weeks ago now? I think the leadership, EDD leadership, was able to meet with the growth labs directly and have a very robust conversation about the support and products and opportunities that they provide, which has been really excellent for the department to be able to leverage and for data analysis and modeling and everything else. So it's been a very useful tool that we plan to continue leveraging as long as possible.
Yeah, and as part of that process, we may be reaching out to you and your leadership to ask you for your perspectives on barriers to a more resilient and diversified New Mexico economy. So just wanted to keep that in mind that if you hear about that, it's part of our research efforts. And so, hopefully we can maybe have that presentation from them early on in the year within our agenda so that you become familiar with that. And we're very excited because when I secured this partnership with the Growth Lab, it was myself and Tim O'Brien from the Growth Lab just trying to find a way to work together since their expertise is in economic diversification. We're really excited that we're only the second US state to get access to their resources after Wyoming. So we're really lucky to have them working with us throughout the next year. Juan Carlos will be the fellow working with us from the Growth Lab. And then on the state plan, I just wanted to recognize that Thomas Silva is here. He is a policy fellow from Cornell Law School, and just wanted to say that he has been a tremendous help and has brought us so much in the way of legal and policy expertise and has devoted countless hours to working on the plan with us. So we appreciate you, Thomas. I know Thomas has been sick recently, so he may or may not be able to go on camera right now, but just wanted to recognize him for playing a very vital role in all of this. Yeah, and beyond that, I don't know that I have any other updates from EDD. Isaac, is there anything on your end? Nope. Okay. Take a look at our next item then. Okay, looks like it would just be public comment. And so at this time, if anyone has a comment they'd like to add, just raise your hand. Okay. Well, seeing none, I can now entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn, James.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, seeing none, we will now adjourn this meeting of the Sustainable Economy Task Force on Thursday, January 16th, 2025 at 2:34 p.m. Good job, guys. That was quick. Thank you so much, and we will see you next month. We may adjust our timing as well. We're just trying to work around the holidays and session. So we'll let you know, and I'll get you that list of agenda items. Thank you.